What's going on, everyone? OJ back with another video. I was making my top 15 pound for pound favorite fighters list before Dana White decided to drop nukes on us with a shitload of insane announcements. Normally, one of these alone will be considered big news, but Dana White was charitable enough to drop all of the nuclear weapons on us on a random Instagram live stream. So, thank you for that, Dana White. I'm going to talk about each one of these big announcements, give my initial thoughts, and speculate on early predictions. So, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Starting off with the biggest announcement, in my opinion. Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena is now set to be the headliner for UFC 315 coming this May. Now, I was initially bummed out because Shavkat Rakhmonov apparently cannot be healthy in time for UFC 315, but I'm not going to complain too much because we just got the next best option in Jack Della Maddalena. JDM has some of the crispiest boxing combinations you will ever witness, and his grappling defense is getting better and better every time. Meanwhile, we have Bilal Muhammad, who has defied all of the odds so far throughout his career through sheer grit and pressure. I just can't wait to see this fight happen. Now, before I give my early prediction on this fight, just know that I haven't watched tape on either of these guys for quite some time. So, in a few months, when this fight actually comes close, maybe my opinions will change. But right now, I'm going to pick Bilal Muhammad to win via decision. Do I want Bilal Muhammad to win? Not really. And it's not like I dislike him personally, I just don't enjoy watching his style over JDM's. With that being said, it's hard for me to pick against Bilal Muhammad because I believe it's more likely we see Bilal smudge up JDM up against the fence or on the ground rather than JDM finding the shots to chin Bilal Muhammad. Can JDM put Bilal Muhammad's lights out? Yes, but I don't know if Bilal Muhammad is going to play that game with JDM. I reckon Bilal will take a very similar approach to when he fought Vicente Luque. In that fight, I remember Bilal's game plan was to circle around on the outside, keeping Luque at range with kicks before shooting in at a takedown in the last minute of each round to try and secure as many rounds as he can through top control. I don't see brick wall takedown defense from JDM. I see more of a go with the flow jujitsu approach when grappling. JDM is good at getting back up to his feet, but I don't know if Bilal will just let JDM get back up that easily compared to when JDM fought Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is a great grappler, but he doesn't have nearly as good top control as Bilal Muhammad. So I'm gonna make sure to study their tape when the time comes. But for now, I say Bilal Muhammad beats JDM. Now that brings us to the other part of the welterweight fiasco because Sean Brady is stepping in on short notice to fight Leon Edwards at UFC London. Now JDM was supposed to fight Leon Edwards at UFC London, but because he is now fighting for the belt at UFC 315, Sean Brady now steps up as a comparable replacement. Sean Brady looked very good in this fight with Gilbert Burns. I was very surprised to see how dominant Brady was because just a few fights ago, he got walked down and TKO'd by Bilal Muhammad. This is a very hard fight for me to pick because, again, I haven't watched Leon Edwards fights in a while now. But if I had to give a prediction off the top of my head, I say Leon Edwards gets the job done. As bad as Leon Edwards performed at UFC 304, I believe the fact that this shit was at 5 a.m. UK time really played a factor in his fight with Bilal Muhammad. Would I pick Leon Edwards in a hypothetical rematch? Not really, but I think Leon Edwards performs a lot better now that the UFC isn't putting his fight on at 5 a.m. UK time. As good as Sean Brady looked against Gilbert Burns, I don't think Brady will be able to find the same level of success on the feet like he did against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns primarily only throws looping right hands or trades one for one shots, whereas Leon Edwards actually picks his shots and can throw combinations when necessary. Now, is there a world where Brady just follows the Bilal Muhammad game plan and just pressures Leon Edwards for almost 5 straight rounds? Maybe. But I don't think Sean Brady has the same type of pressure that Bilal Muhammad brings, both striking defense wise and grappling wise. Most of the time, we see Sean Brady throwing counters to opponents while they are in the middle of their strikes. And it worked against Gilbert Burns because Gilbert Burns only throws one shot at a time. and it's telegraphed, but Leon Edwards will be selecting better shots than Gilbert Burns, and I think Brady's going to have a hard time trying to find his range. I need to rewatch Edwards versus Bilal in order for me to fully commit to a decision, but given Edwards is probably going to come back actually looking to fight for once, I say Edwards edges out a close decision. On to the next event. Alexander Volkanovski is set to face Diego Lopez for a vacant featherweight title at UFC 314 because Ilia Topuria is moving on to the 155-pound weight class. Before we talk about Ilia Topuria's moving up to the lightweight division, we need to talk about Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez because most people were speculating that Volkanovski was supposed to fight Ilia Topuria instead at UFC 314. I'm actually happy that this matchup is made because this is a more approachable matchup for Alexander Volkanovski. Let's be honest, nobody wants to see Volk get slumped out cold by Topuria again. We've already seen the ending of this movie. Could Volkanovski get his chin cleaned out by Lopez as well? Yes, but this is a lot more approachable than Ilia Topuria, in my opinion, because unlike Topuria, Lopez can tire out as the rounds progress. With that being said, however, I believe that Diego Lopez is going to get the job done. And Volk fans are going to be extremely sad after UFC 314. This is a more approachable matchup for Volkanovski, but I just don't know if his chin will hold up to make it past round three. Yes, Diego Lopez can gas himself out, but not really. Like, he paced himself just fine in the Brian Ortega fight. And in his fight with Dan Ige, he gassed out because he had to make like three separate weight cuts all within the span of like a day and a half. Will Volkanovski be able to stand his ground for 5 rounds straight against a dangerous knockout artist like Diego Lopez? Hard to see that happening after his chin got cleaned out twice. Like, I know both of those fights where Volk got knocked out were under terrible circumstances. However, even the most stout Volkanovski fans can agree that if Lopez hits Volk once, very huge possibility that Volk gets slumped out cold. Yes, Volkanovski has very good defense, but will he be able to implement it perfectly for 25 minutes? I say not really. Therefore, Lopez will win this fight via knockout. But I'm glad that this matchup is being made for Volk because, again, this is a more approachable matchup. And that brings us to Ilia Topuria. Apparently, he's moving up to the 155-pound weight class. I thought Dana White was going to announce something like Taporia will be fighting Islam Makhachev. However, that does not seem to be the case right now because if it were, Dana White would have already announced it on his Instagram live stream. So that leaves us with a couple of options. I see people are predicting a Dustin Poirier fight. Would it be a sick fight? Yes, but I do not want to see Dustin Poirier, one of my all-time favorite fighters, get his chin cleaned out for his retirement fight. Very interesting to see Ilya actually move up though, because for the longest time it was unclear as to whether or not the UFC will actually try to make Topuria continuously defend his title, or just give him the Conor McGregor treatment and give him Islam Makhachev. Either way, I'll be looking forward to future announcements regarding Ilya Topuria because now that Topuria has moved up to the 155-pound weight class, there are a lot of interesting fights to make. We also have some smaller announcements that I briefly want to cover. Michael Chandler is set to fight Paddy Pimblett for the co-main event of UFC 314. Finally, we get Michael Chandler to fight an up-and-comer in the lightweight division instead of giving him established top 5 contenders after established top 5 contenders for like the fourth time just for him to lose. With that being said, I say Paddy Pimblett gets the job done, possibly via submission. Pimblett's submission game is fucking nasty. If this fight goes to the ground, Chandler is gonna be in for a long night. Now, there's a chance that Paddy Pimblett is mid because he couldn't get Tony Ferguson out of the ring in 2023. That's not a great look. And then he choked out Bobby Green via triangle armbar, which I have to say makes up for the Tony Ferguson performance. I think Chandler's time in the UFC is coming to a close in 2025. He did not look great whatsoever against Charles Oliveira, and the only time he found success in that fight was when he was cheating his ass off by blatantly targeting the back of Oliveira's head or gouging out Oliveira's eyes. In terms of skills, I think Patty Pimblett is the better fighter. Plus, we have to consider the fact that Chandler is 38 years old, coming off a torn ACL a couple of months back. Meanwhile, Pimblett is in the prime of his career, and he's only going to get better from here. I reckon Pimblett will be able to get the job done. This is 5 rounds, however, and there is a concern regarding Pimblett's conditioning, but given that Chandler looks so bad in this fight against Charles Oliveira, I think Pimblett will be able to find success. Also announced for UFC 314, Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. This is a huge matchup because the winner of this fight will probably get a top 5 contender in the welterweight division. And stylistically, this is a sick fight. We have Jeff Neal, one of the nastiest pocket boxers with brick hands, against Carlos Prates, a vicious Muay Thai fighter coming out of the Fighting Nerds gym. I say Carlos Prates wins, and the reason for that is because Jeff Neal can't just clinch up against Carlos Prates. I believe Prates will be able to pick apart Jeff Neal at range because he is the taller fighter with a lot more variety to his strikes. But the true difference between these two fighters comes in the clinch, in my opinion. A lot of times when we see Jeff Neal get picked apart at range, we see him try to clinch up against his opponents. Now, that may work against someone like Ian Gary, who is good in those situations, but he doesn't throw any offense in the clinch, which allows for Neal to just stall out the fight if he gets picked apart at range. The difference between Ian Gary and Carlos Prates, however, is the fact that Prates will throw vicious knees and elbows in the clinch, and I don't think Jeff Neal will be prepared for that situation. Now, there is a chance that Prates gets outboxed by Jeff Neal and possibly get put out cold. But I favor Prates' activity and his diverse shot selection to possibly put away Jeff Neal in the later rounds. Also, for UFC 314, we have Yair Rodriguez making his annual return against Patricio Pitbull. Pitbull is a very good addition to the UFC roster because he was a former Bellator champion, and for the longest time, many people thought he was the best featherweight outside of the UFC. I can't really give a prediction for this fight because I have never watched a Patricio Pitbull fight, but I see a lot of people picking Yair Rodriguez for this. I am interested to see how Pitbull will fare against Rodriguez. I don't think Rodriguez is this world beater, but he is very dangerous. That being said, I don't know enough to get a prediction. Maybe I'll give one when the time comes and I started watching Patricio Pitbull fights, but until then, I'm not gonna comment on this fight other than I'm excited to see what Pitbull can do. Moving on to UFC 315, we have my wifey Alexa Grasso taking on Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva looked very impressive against Jessica Andrade. Her kicks are wicked fast, she has superb footwork, and when she lets her hands go, they can cause some serious damage. However, I cannot turn my back against Alexa Grasso because Grasso, I believe, is the more complete fighter. I know that her last fight against Shevchenko looked really bad, but I think this is a more approachable style for Grasso, in my opinion. Natalia Silva oftentimes plays the game of circling around and rapid firing kicks and punches, trying to lure her opponents in like a matador. Doesn't work against Alexa Grasso. We've seen Shevchenko try that exact same game plan where she would just kick at range and try to use her footwork to outpace Grasso. But then Grasso was ultimately able to get inside and submit uh, Valentina Shevchenko in the fourth round of their first fight. If Silva comes out there and starts shooting takedowns and puts on a stinker like what Shevchenko did, I do think Silva wins this. However, backing up and just firing fast kicks at range is not the ideal way to beat Alexa Grasso, in my opinion, because my wife has some serious dynamite in her hands. Silva does have very good reversals and takedown defense, but in this case, I believe Silva needs to be the one to shoot takedowns for her to find success in the grappling, and I don't see Silva shooting takedowns in this fight. Therefore, I'm picking Grasso to win via decision. And I don't know if I missed anything else, but assuming I did, this is the last announcement I want to talk about. Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. It's set to take place as the co-main event for UFC 315. I see some people complaining about this fight, but personally, I don't mind it whatsoever. If anything, this fight should have happened a long time ago, because for some reason we needed a trilogy between Shevchenko and Grasso that nobody asked for. I don't have a solid prediction for this fight, but if I were to pick someone, I think Fiora will get the job done. Fiora, in my opinion, is the better kickboxer with a lot more athleticism and strength than Valentina Shevchenko. I don't believe Shevchenko can just secure a double leg at will, like when she fought Alexa Grasso a few months back. Fiora is actually good at framing and won't willingly pull guillotines to put herself in bottom position. We've seen that in her fight against Aaron Blanchfield, who is probably the best grappler in this division right now. Plus, Fiora is a lot younger than Shevchenko, and it shows in both of their approaches to fighting. We've seen Shevchenko gradually transition over to more of a grappling based style. However, as I mentioned earlier, I think that style will be hard to enforce on someone like Manon Fiora unless you are stronger than her, which I don't think Shevchenko is. Uh, this will be a great fight regardless, though, because the winner of this fight will fight Zhang Weili, who needs time to bulk up the flyweight. I reckon the winner of this fight will fight Zhang Weili by the end of this year, and hopefully we get to see the undisputed number one pound for pound fighter in women's MMA, because I'm pretty excited to see who it is. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought about all of these crazy announcements made by the UFC last night. Other than that, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.